Hello again. This is Dolores Cannon with the Metaphysical Hour. We are live tonight. Last week, I took off and they had the archives. We had to drive to Des Moines to do a conference. And this one was not my happiest conference I've done. Normally, I do so many of these, they turn out just fine. But on the way up there, I began to get a sore throat and I lost my voice. And I had to do the book signing the night before with a real scratchy voice. And then I had a 2-hour lecture, and I thought I sounded awful squawky. But they said everything was okay, but it was not the happiest lecture that I've done. But, you have to do it. No matter what, you have to go through. So when we got back home, drove back, I was wiped out this whole week. I couldn't talk, and I've just been laying around in bed recovering, and I never have anything like that happen, so it's very discouraging. But now I think I can talk well enough tonight that we'll be able to do the radio show. Okay. Now, from now until June, my guests are going to be the speakers at our conference. Our conference is in June. This is our 5th one. And every year they're getting bigger and better. And some of the main speakers that we have are the authors that we publish with our company. And we like them to get used to speaking before large audiences, and that's why we want them to come and get their feet wet with this. Of course, some of them are already speakers, but the main thing is my new authors, I like to have them every year, and then we always have a very good keynote. Those who have come before, last year we had about 400 people, and our keynote was Helen Reddy, the one who used to be the singer, and we brought her from Australia, and it was a tremendous conference along with all the other speakers. It's a 3-day conference. This year, our keynote is going to be Lindsay Wagner. That's right, folks, the Lindsay Wagner. The one who used to be the Bionic Woman. She's coming to Arkansas. We're finding out that a lot of these very famous people, as they go on with their career, they're not worried about their images anymore. Right. They're finally coming out and letting people know that many of them are very highly involved in metaphysics. And I think that's wonderful. That was the case with Helen Reddy, and it's the case with Lindsay Wagner. More and more of them that I'm finding are now letting people know they're very metaphysical. She's the main speaker. We also are going to have Daniel Brinkley, who most of you know who he is. He's a man who died 3 times and lived to tell the story. And another one we're going to have, I just had her on the air before I left, was Sherry Edwards. She is absolutely fantastic. The one who has the new technology with sound, the technology of healing with sound. She's a pioneer in the field. And after we got off the air, I called her back and asked her if she could come to the conference. And she's going to be there and help people analyze what tones will heal anything wrong with them. So this is going to be a very good conference. Julie, my daughter Julia's here. You go ahead and tell them where it's going to be, and then we'll get on with our guests.
Okay, it will be June 18th to the 20th. That's a Friday through a Sunday. And it's at the John Q. Hammonds Convention Center, which is also part of the Embassy Suites in Rogers, Arkansas. And we have all the information on our website, which is ozarkmt.com, ozarkmt.com. Or you can call our office and get information for prices and everything. And that's at 800-935-0045. Okay, on with the show.
Okay. And we found out that our venue, John Q. Hammond Center, is the largest venue in the whole state of Arkansas.
That's right, folks. We're moving up.
we're upgrading, and we'll probably be able to be there forever now because it'll hold more than enough people, I think.
Right.
So things are really changing and improving. Okay, so that's the news, and you check the website, you'll find out more about the conference. All right, so as I said, from here until June, my guests are going to be the speakers their authors that we've published. The one tonight we're going to have is Mandeep Khera. Mandeep Khera, I published his book. It just come out. It hasn't been out very long.
A few months ago.
Just a few months ago. The book is called Why. Now, that's a very easy title to remember, just one word, Why. And we're going to let him talk about the book tonight and, why he wrote it and all of these things.
Some more whys?
Some more whys. Okay. All right. Mandeep, you're there, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Thanks for having me, Dolores.
And you really should be done work and on your way home by now, shouldn't you?
I should be.
Okay.
But the question is, why not?
Yeah, why not? Okay. Well, Mandeep, the one thing we want to find out is about your background. I always ask about that first.
Sure.
Uh-huh.
So my background is pretty interesting. I grew up early part of my life in India, in New Delhi, the capital.
I've been to New Delhi.
Have you? What did you think of it?
What did you think of it?
Oh, it's really interesting. It's very different.
Yeah, I think most people either love it or hate it. There's no middle ground there.
Okay, but you grew up in New Delhi.
Yeah, so I spent early years of my life there, and came through the background of, interestingly enough, started off in the accounting background as a CPA there, and moved to the U.S. Back in 1984. So more than, I guess, almost 26 years ago now. And I've been professionally, in various different positions within the software industry, large and small companies. First few years within finance and accounting area, then moved into marketing as a general manager for various companies and partly CEO, and I'm currently a chief marketing officer for a software company. But throughout on my professional path, and throughout my career, so one passion that I had was writing. And so for the last, I guess, 25 years or so, I've been writing on various topics, including articles and various different types of things.
Well, that's why I think it's so strange. How does somebody who has worked in Silicon Valley with computers all of a sudden switch to metaphysics? How did that happen?
I think it happened probably in my childhood. I used to be one of those kids who used to think a lot, observe a lot, and when I saw people around me that were strange things that were happening, for example, I saw, and especially in India, it's easy to see those types of things where there's a huge contrast between the rich and the poor and those types of things, and so I used to
Definitely.
I used to notice those a lot. And always question those things as to why, right? I mean, repeatedly that question kept coming to my mind, not only for the rich and poor, but, I saw a few deaths early on with my friends and close people, so I used to, again, wonder about those types of things. So right from the beginning, that kind of had the seed planted in my mind. And then I just wanted to express myself in a creative way, and I was more of a shy kid growing up. So I think I chose writing as the venue or as the medium for my kind of expressing my feelings. So I started writing pretty early on, probably in high school. Obviously first various attempts, which were not very good. And slowly I progressed and got better at it. So that's kind of how I got into it. That was the genesis of it.
Okay. Well, the name of the book is Why, and the subtitle is Answers to Life's Most Important Question.
Mm-hmm.
And the book, even before we printed it, Mandeep had his own copies, and it already had won 2 awards. Well, one was a finalist, and the other one was a winner of the 2009 Written Arts Awards. So even before you were out there pushing it that much, it was already being noticed by people, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and it was really delightful to see that because, as a first-time author, since I had taken that step to get it self-published, I mean, I knew that I wanted to write that book, and my whole purpose was to make a difference in people's lives, and it wasn't really that commercially driven, at least originally from a motivation point of view.
Yeah.
So when I published it, I obviously gave the first few copies to friends and family just to get their feedback. And being a marketing and profession, I always like to do focus groups. So that was kind of my focus group, and I wanted to get feedback before I published it. And the feedback was extremely positive from close friends and distant friends, and who read the book and said made a big difference to them. So that's why I decided to move forward and publish it. And so I was hoping that people will enjoy reading it. I wasn't expecting awards right away, and it was great to see. Actually, I think I won 3 awards on that book. So that was a great feeling of accomplishment when I saw that come through.
Right.
Okay. Well, it says here the answers to life's most important question. What do you think the important question is? Just, Julie says, why?
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 We've been debating this. Well, what is the question? It's why.
It's why, that's right. and it's really one question for many things, right? So
yes.
So again, if you start asking questions on in various different areas. So for example, why do young children die? You know,
okay.
why good things, bad things happen to good people, and vice versa. You know, why is there a big storm and you have or a hurricane or some catastrophe or earthquake or 8.8 earthquake in Haiti, for example, where a lot of people die, but then you have some people who are saved from the rubble, right? So those are the questions, the mysteries of life. That we all ask on a daily basis. And so what I've done is basically made an attempt to answer some of those questions from my point of view, but also taking various other points of view as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, in my work as a therapist, too, I see thousands of people, and sometimes they bring up the question, they usually just want to know what is the meaning of life. So it's not a why question, it's a what question.
Well,
but
it's kind of why am I here?
Yeah, there was
right.
one, why am I here? Right. The most common question they ask me when they come to see me is, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing?
Right.
Am I on the right path? And a lot of them are worried about running out of time. So, I get a lot of the same questions in my work anyway.
Right.
But, some of this broken down into what you consider the questions. What do you think is the most important question then? They're all important.
Yeah, they're all important. I think the question that most people are asking really is, like you said, why am I here? And what is the meaning of life? And what am I supposed to be doing? I mean, that probably is the most important question. And I think that there's no one simple answer, and obviously I've broken it down in my book into different areas on how to address different parts of life. So there's no one simple answer. But one of the key things is to understand, which parts of your life do you want to address while you're here, and what is the part that you're struggling with? So, for example, some people really have a hard time with death, right? So, so just to give an example of how I extrapolate in my book is, people who are so scared of death, and so when I ask them why, their answer is they really don't have a clear answer. They basically say because of the unknown, right? It's the fear of unknown.
It's always the fear of the unknown.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't know where they're going, and even if you have the concept of heaven or hell or whatever beliefs you have, it's still that unknown that, if I close my eyes, I might not wake up, and where will I end up, right?
Yeah.
So I've tried to answer that question, obviously, in a way where it says, you can think of life as a short-term thing, or you can think of life as a continuum, and your perspective will change if you do that.
Okay.
So again,
I've covered all these things in my work too, so I can understand perfectly where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Because no one ever dies anyway.
Right.
Everything is energy, and energy just changes form, but no one ever dies.
Yeah, exactly. And it's I think when you think of it as a continuum, and you know that it's a long-term thing, it gives you that inner peace. Now, people who don't want to believe that, I ask them this question simply: if you had two approaches, one is to think of it as a long-term continuum of life, or a short-term that nothing happens after this life, what makes you feel better, and why would you pick the one that doesn't make you feel better, you know?
Yeah, good point. And whichever one makes you feel better, that's your truth.
Exactly. I mean, since both are unknowns, why would you pick the one that makes you feel worse?
Well, exactly.
Yeah, because, I've seen arguments on TV where the people are arguing against it, saying there's nothing after this life. When you die, that's it. There's nothing beyond that.
Right.
And to me, that would be a very horrible way to believe, but to think this is it, there's nothing more. But I don't know how that could make them feel better, but maybe there's some out there.
But they're probably not conditioned to believe in that way, that I can be here and feel good. Maybe it's all supposed to be torture and everything and whatever.
Or maybe I better get it all done now because this is all there is,
Right.
Of course, we know better, and that's the thing. But still, it goes against, the church has one way of looking at it, and then we have another way of looking at it.
Yeah, and I think probably the biggest conflict I find, and it's pretty interesting. So, I get unsolicited emails from different people who have bought my book and read it. And it's interesting, obviously the biggest objections I get are from people, and it's across the board. It's not one religion, right? So I've heard from Christians and Hindus and Sikhs and Jewish. I mean, so everyone, pretty much, people who are more hardline religious people have more objections than anyone else. Because
I guess because you're shaking their foundations a bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I can understand that, and my reply to them is, look, I'm not trying to create a cult here. I'm sharing my opinions, I'm sharing my feedback, I'm sharing my perspective, weaving into other perspectives as well, so that you can lead a better life. And if you truly don't believe in that, if you don't want to follow it, it's okay. It's your right, it's your belief. I'm not forcing you to change it. But all I'm trying to do is make sure you have your minds open. And maybe this will make you feel better if the other side is not. But if the other side is working for you, then you're okay. Then don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. So it's pretty interesting. That in fact, I'll give you a really interesting anecdote. So I have a good friend who was a very strong Christian. And so first time he, kind of was reluctant to buy my book because, he was having that guard up saying, this book will probably go against my religion, I can tell, right? So, so then reluctantly he bought that book. And I didn't hear back from him, for a few months. And recently, just about a month ago, he sent me a very nice email, said, hey, I read your book again because my wife went through, she got Alzheimer's and she had to go to a nursing home, and I started questioning all these things, and I wasn't getting answers in what I was reading in my religion. So I reread your book, and he said it made me feel so much better that I've actually bought extra books from my other friends who are going through the same experience. So that to me was a big, really good feeling for me that at least here's another life, it's made a difference. So.
How fantastic.
Yeah, because I get emails from every religion you could possibly think of, too. And I think that's the important thing. I respect people's beliefs. I never want to go against them.
Right.
I just present the information, and if it fits, okay. But I work with swamis and ashrams all over the world, every religion, and I just think there's some truth in everything. But I know in the Christian religion, the preacher was always saying, when you ask difficult questions, he just said, we're not supposed to know those things while we're still alive.
Right.
When you die, all the answers will be there. But I said, I don't want to wait till I die. I want to know them now.
Right.
That's their way of getting out of it because they don't have the answers.
Sure.
Uh-huh.
Well, religion is a business too, right? I mean, let's face it. It's
Yes, it is.
So when you're running a business, they have they have to protect the business.
Oh yeah. But I've done this for so many years, and I've found the answers to all these things. And I think you'll agree, I've never found the hell anywhere.
Right.
There isn't any such thing.
Right.
No loving God would ever create something like that.
And what would be the purpose of that, right? I mean, it's like, why make us go through this exercise of living a life and then deciding where to go? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
It's all done out of fear.
Yeah.
Makes people afraid, and, if you don't do what we tell you to do, this is how you're going to end up.
Right.
But in all of the thousands and thousands of people that I've worked with, I've never found this in any of my work, so I know there isn't any such thing.
Mm-hmm.
God is a wonderful, beautiful thing, and people should realize that.
Exactly, and the God's image could be anything, and that's one of the things that I mentioned in my book is, and it's interesting how people can get defensive about this. It's a pretty interesting notion. So I've asked this question to people. I said, what if I told you that God was a supercomputer?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And people freak out. I mean, they literally freak out, and they're like, what do you mean you're insulting? I said, no, wait a minute. All I'm saying is there's an image. Let's assume for a second that God is a supercomputer. So,
okay.
So why would that make any difference to you? You are still a child of that supercomputer. So as far as you're concerned, that supercomputer is your God. So why do you care what the image is? But people don't, because they have these preconceived notions, they don't want to accept that.
Right.
See, so that's where the openness of mind comes in, right?
Their foundation again.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's what I say when I'm lecturing on this, that first you've got to get away from the idea that God is a man.
Mm-hmm.
He is not a man. I said, if anything, he would be a woman because the women are the creative power.
Right.
But he's neither one. He's neither male nor female.
Right.
He is just an extreme creative power, a wonderful power that is total love.
Right.
And that's what I have got. So I wanted to know, is that your concept of God, or how do you explain him, besides supercomputer?
Supercomputer is probably pretty close.
Because they say everything we learn when we die, it goes
downloaded.
Downloaded into God's computer anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
But how do you perceive it?
Yeah, so I believe that God is a power, and I really meant it when I said that I don't have any specific image in mind. It could be a light, a source. It could be a panel of gods. I mean, but it doesn't matter, right? So my only point was that there's a creator. We know that. We know that we are accountable to someone or something, right? That,
if not just ourselves, even.
Exactly. So. But that creator could be anything. I mean, it could be another planet. It could be an energy source. It could be a supercomputer. It could be a dog. It could be a monkey. I don't care, because my point is simply this: there's a creator. I report to that creator. Period. And as long as I know that, I'll always have that respect for the creator, and I'll always do the right things for the creator, and it doesn't matter what that image is in my mind, right? So that's how I see it. I mean, and so I personally believe there's a power, there's a source of energy that's controlling all this. But again, it could be anything. My mind is totally open. It could be anything.
Well, that's what I have been told many times in my work. They call it the source.
Right.
And it is like a gigantic light. Sometimes it's called the great central sun. Mm-hmm. It is an enormous, bright light and power that is totally full of love.
Mm-hmm.
That's about the only way. But so they said it's indescribable, so that's about the best they can come to it anyway.
Right, exactly.
But, the church wants to personify it. They want to turn it into a being, a person, and I think that belittles it. It pushes it down what it really is.
Yeah, and I think most religions do. It's interesting, most religions do want to create an image in your mind to follow, and maybe because it's easy for human beings to comprehend that having an image, a human image, saintly-looking person is probably much easier digestible than anything else. So maybe that's why it's so easy to adapt to, because most people, I think, don't want to think about too much about other things. They just want a simple image.
Yeah, I think you're right there.
They don't want to question too many things, and
don't make me think.
Exactly. They want to follow a path because that's what they've been told, and they find that's the easiest path to take.
Well, see, that's why I think it doesn't matter what religion you belong to. They all worship, if that's the right word, a God.
Mm-hmm.
And that God is the same no matter what religion you belong to.
Right.
I've done a lot of research into these things, and I found that every religion in the world, when it began, had mostly the same concepts. There were no difference in what they worshipped, and they all believed in reincarnation because it makes so much sense. It was only later, as each religion developed and became separated, that man himself are the ones that put rules and regulations on things.
Yeah.
These weren't there in the beginning.
Right. And all religions have, if you read back on most of these religions, I would say all of them, there was a basis, there was a need for, at that specific time, for why that religion was needed. And over thousands of years, things have changed, and we're still following the same old dogmas of religions. And again, because they've become more like a business, and no one wants to let those businesses die. It's a good money-making machine, and why wouldn't you continue with that, right? So it becomes a continuous circle until you force yourself to get out of it.
Mm-hmm. Instead of growing with the times, the religion should change to match with the times.
Right.
Doesn't mean it has to change its basic values, but it should adapt to the times as we go through it, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, I made a list of the things in your book here. Oh, what about karma?
Mm-hmm.
What's your viewpoint on that?
So when you ask a question about why these things happen, so my personal belief is karma plays a big role in life. But I believe karma plays a role in two ways. One is in the current life, and the other one is in the following life. And which is how I personally can explain things that happen to kids, for example, who haven't really done much, and bad things are happening to them. So it has to link somehow to previous life or previous lives, what they're carrying forward, why these things are happening to them at that young an age. But I also believe that your current karma has a big impact on this life as well. So I think what we do today, and whether we like it or not, or whether we recognize it or not, things do come back, and it's a payback, even within this life. So I strongly believe in it. I know a few people who have kind of achieved somewhat of an enlightenment state, and I've confirmed with them, and they have actually confirmed the concept that yes, it is the way things work.
I like to call when it's doing it in this life, I like to call it cause and effect, because it's like, because that makes sense. It's like, okay, I've done this, and it usually happens that fast, where it's pretty much I did this, now this caused this to happen. So
right.
Well, now it's happening faster anyway than it used to. It used to take many lifetimes going round and around making the same mistakes with the same people. Now we're having to face it quicker, and where things are moving faster.
Yeah, and I think the faster you notice, oh, I made that happen, then it wipes it out real fast.
Right.
You learn it real quick. So.
Exactly. I think it's funny how we, all the positive things that happen, we say, I did it. And all the negative things that happen, we say, damn luck, right?
Or they did it.
Yeah, they did it.
Yeah. Or God is punishing me or something.
Exactly. It's really funny how that works out.
But it goes around, comes around.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's part of the people. I work with so many people's problems. And you can see they brought it on themselves, and they're holding on to anger and resentment and things that people have done to them. Sometimes the people have been already dead, but they're still resenting it years and years later. And I try to explain to them, you keep hanging on to that, you've got to come back and do it again with the same people.
Right.
You haven't released the karma.
Right, exactly. And it's interesting to me is that people, again, I go back to, the point that I was making a few minutes earlier. So when you ask people, there are two ways of doing things. You can do bad things. You can try to really hurt someone and malicious and all that stuff. And you can be really good and nice and help others. If you do those two things, which one makes you feel better? Almost invariably, people will say, even the bad guys will say, doing good things make me feel better. Then why would you want to keep doing the other thing? And that's the logical explanation I still don't have. And I keep asking people, why would you do the other thing that makes you unhappy?
The devil made me do it.
Yeah, exactly. The devil made me do it. Yeah. Satan made me do it. And I think it's really interesting. So, and they tell me that those things make them feel unhappy. So then when I say, why you keep doing it, then they're like, we don't know. And I think part of it might be that those people, frankly, are happy being unhappy. You know what I'm saying? Some people like being miserable.
Oh, yes.
Well, I think it's because it is an emotion.
Right.
Maybe if they didn't have that, they wouldn't have any emotion going on. Or something.
Yeah, and that might be true. And I think that...
But some people like to feel miserable.
Exactly.
Because I have people coming to see me that say they want help, and then when you talk to them, they really don't. They enjoy being miserable.
Yeah, there are benefits. They're getting some benefit, or they wouldn't keep doing it.
They get attention or whatever it is.
And it might be some deep-rooted psychology, right, where they were miserable or they were acting miserable as kids to get attention from their parents or siblings or whatever. And that deep-rooted psychology stays with them, so they like that feeling of misery so others can feel sympathy for them, right? I mean, it's so they get into this whole loop of always staying that way because that's the way they like it.
Right, like you said, is it working for you? And in some cases, that is working for them.
Yeah, that's right.
Like in a warped, twisted way, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So. The masochism still is alive, right? So.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
But
now I hear the most horrible stories you couldn't believe about how people treat each other in my work, and it's amazing how they do this, and they don't even see how they're doing it themselves and creating the karma.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting why they do those things. So I mean, I was just reading a story that it was like heart-wrenching story about this, and this just came out like about a week ago, where this guy took his puppy and lit it on fire in front of his kids.
Oh.
And you have to question the mental stability of that guy. I mean, it's like it's a puppy who's barking, right? And but not only, I mean, hitting is even bad, but I mean, throwing oil on it and lighting it on fire in front of his kids, and just imagine the impact on the kids for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely.
But people do very strange things for absolutely no reason. It's just bizarre, right? So.
Right.
Well, we have to believe that it's going to come around. They don't get out of anything.
Right.
You can't do something like this. This is going against the laws of the universe, the laws of nature.
Exactly.
And it will come back. And I feel you got to pity people like that because they don't realize what they are bringing back on themselves.
Right,
and
exactly.
everyone around them.
Uh-huh.
Well, that makes me sick. Don't tell any more stories like that.
Yeah, and it made me sick too. But unfortunately, that's a reality of life. And that's why you have to ask this question: why?
I know.
Yeah.
See, that's what I said. In my work in therapy, I hear horrible things that people have done to each other, and I don't know how people could do that to each other.
Yeah.
But I do know it does come around.
Well, but that's part of this
The
classroom
lifting.
earth, and part of what this lane is about, and what we learn here. And if we want to get absorbed into that kind of stuff, or if we want to move out of it and be here and not have to be part of that.
Right.
But see, that's what's going on now. It's the enlightenment, the awakening. The veil is thinning, that more and more people are becoming aware that there is some more out there.
Mm-hmm. And
it's our job to plant the little seeds, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to find out, and I don't know, Dolores, if you have in your, in your research and talking to people, do you think overall at a global level things are changing more for the positive, or is it the same and we're just seeing more positive in certain areas? What do you see from your point of view?
Well, see, we travel all over the world constantly, and I see people of every nationality, and to me, I think it's getting better. I see a great interest in metaphysics, and I see a great positivity. I don't see the negativity. Now, whether that means I have blinders on or not, but we see a lot of good things.
And it's interesting that you say blinders, because just about a week ago, we were on a trip, and there was something happened, and I was having my little dialogue inside, and I said, well, I'm gonna look at it this way, but then it said, my inner side, whatever, said, well, you could look at it this other way too. It's like taking both sides. And I said, but I want to look at it this way, but does that mean I have blinders on, or I'm being a Pollyanna not to look at it the other way? And my higher self said, that's exactly how this works. It's which do you choose to look at? Which do you choose to focus on? That is your world. And so it's that simple to just go, no, I'm going to look at it this way rather than this way. And so
the positive versus the negative.
But I think as we do that, you will see more of this, I think, this split happening. So it may be, depending on which one you're choosing to look at the time, it's still there, but it's which one do you want to be part of kind of thing.
Right,
and,
right.
Because you do create your reality, you create the world you live in. If you want to live in a positive world, or if you want to live in a negative world where awful things are happening.
And what I'm seeing is like you're seeing more of this split happening, rather than, I think it was very muted before, where now it's more of there's definite, I don't want to say sides, but it's like what you're saying. Do you think it's, is it changing? I feel like it's changing that way. You can see, it's like we have people being accountable, people, being positive and following their guidance, and then we have people over here that are just totally blaming everybody else and into greed and corruption and it's all this stuff. It's like all that's being unearthed, and so that's where it's like it's all more magnified maybe, but it's which one do you want to look at? So.
But I think we're seeing a little more of the positive. Maybe it's because of the groups that we interact with on these trips.
Yeah, we just go around good people.
Which is actually a good thing to do. I mean, I think that's another thing people need to do, frankly, is to follow good people or be around positive people, and that changes you as well, right? So.
Absolutely, yeah. So which world do you want to live in?
I think.
And if you ask yourself that question like you did, Julia, you can have the answer. I mean, the answer is there, and I think you will get an answer. But the problem is most people don't ask that question.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, they
that's
go do.
The question. Yeah.
That's the fear, anyway. Okay, but another one of your questions you had in the book, the meaning of life. Like we did talk a little bit about that. What do you see as the meaning of life? That's an eternal question.
Yeah, so I see life personally as a school. I think we are in a continuous education mode, and I think with an eventual goal of graduating at some point. And I think that's why you see different people. So, 6.6 billion people in this world, and you'll find all kinds of people, right? So you have, and I see people around my friends and families in different tiers, if you will, different grades of life that I can see. So for example, I know personally people who are, I would call them kindergarten of life, because they not only are not spiritual, they're not thinking of good deeds, they're not thinking of helping others. It's all about me, selfish, very narrowly focused. And then you have people who are much more elevated, who are, constantly doing for others. So I personally think the meaning of life is really for us to go through this education that we're going through in the best possible way we can and learn from it and move on to the next one. So how quickly we can graduate is the ultimate goal. And I think if we don't realize that, it'll just take us longer, because we're going to keep failing in that kindergarten.
Yeah, that's what I've written about and lectured on. Every life is a different lesson. It's a different grade in the school, because you can't do it all in one lifetime. You have to keep learning each time before you go on to the next grade, which may or may not be better, but at least it'll be different.
Right.
But I lost my thought there for a minute. Okay, but that's what I've talked about too, is that we do keep on until we graduate, and that can take many, many lifetimes.
Well, and I think the point you're making, like when you're in kindergarten or wherever, it's like as soon as you start becoming aware of your world around you, that there's more to it than just me. Mm-hmm. I think that's when you're really branching out and you're really growing.
Yeah, exactly.
And making progress at those points. So. And
learning from, it's. I've also seen some people turn themselves around, right? And it's so good to. I'm sure you guys see it when you have people who come to your conferences and meet with you. I'm sure they're coming to you because they want to improve. So you probably see that transformation. So I think people who are willing to take that first step and really say, hey, I want to transform myself, I think that's really the biggest hurdle for most people, which is coming to that realization. Because once you come to that realization, I think it's easier to move forward, because there's a lot of help out there. There's a lot of self-help you can get by asking questions like we were just talking about. But most people don't get to that point.
Well, the realization that you can transform,
right.
Much less, that I want to do it, but it's like that you even can, because some people think, well, this is it, this I am the way I am. So
I think when you begin to know there is something more, you begin associating with people that think like you do, and disassociating with those who have been negative and are pulling you the other direction. Yeah. I think the person does begin to see the difference.
Yeah.
And I think that's why. So I just want to make a quick point on something here. Is we need to encourage people to read or get to know these types of concepts early in their lives, because they'll make a big difference. So again, to give an example from my real life, right? So when I wrote the book, it was still in the manuscript phase, and my niece, she was 11 at that time, and so she said, "Can I borrow this?" And I was like, "Absolutely, here, let me give you a copy of it, read it, and tell me what you think." And she read the book, and she came back and said, "Wow, I never thought of life this way. It just totally changed." This is an 11-year-old girl, right?
Wow.
And she said, "This just changes my perspective of life." And those are the things we need to do, which is seed these things early in life. And frankly, our schools don't do that.
No. Well, what caused her to want to look at it in the first place?
Well, I think she herself was kind of having some problems and, with different aspects of life. And I think she was questioning some of those things herself. So when she saw the book sitting there on my desk, and it had big question mark, why, and it had lights. So she started flipping through the pages, and she said, this looks very interesting. Can I borrow it? And so I gave her a copy, and I said, yes, this is yours. But you have to give me feedback of what you think. and she read it right away. I mean, she read it like within a day or so, and cover to cover, and she came back and said, I loved it, and I never thought of life this way. So, again, to me, I think it's reaching those kids early on and making them familiar with these concepts will be huge. I mean, for humanity, I think for the whole world. If you think about it, how many lives we can change.
Yeah, see, I get letters from 10-year-olds and like that, too. Mm-hmm. And one of the first ones I got, the letters was, you're probably going to think I'm stupid to ask this question. And I was thinking, if you can read my books and understand them, there's nothing stupid you could possibly ask me.
Right.
But I had another one who emailed us, and he was a 10-year-old, and he is understanding all of this at 10 years old, and he's trying to talk to the other schoolmates. Well, of course, they don't understand, and they fight with him and beat him up and argue with him. And he said, what am I supposed to do? I said, just don't try to change anybody. Don't try to talk to anybody. You know what you believe, and just move on with your life. And then eventually they will get to the point they start asking questions. And when they do, you'll have the answers. Otherwise, you're not supposed to try to make anybody else believe anything.
Right. And I think it's if you look at our school system, right, it's spiritual stuff, and I'm not talking about religion, right? So some, obviously, schools try to push religion, which is a mistake, but, I mean, some of the spiritual things, asking questions about life and letting kids explore that is nowhere in our school system anywhere, and that's a shame, because I think that would make a huge difference in elevating everyone's life, and it's a shame we don't do that. Well,
when people want to know what the meaning of life, when I ask them, I always tell them, we're here to help each other.
Yeah.
And it's all about love. That's the most important emotion there is, and it's all about helping each other and love. If you do that, you can't help but win, because there's no karma.
Right.
And everybody, we're all alike. We're just people. You are not a body, you have a body. And this is just a suit of clothes, a costume you're wearing right now to play this part. But we're all here learning different lessons and going different directions. So if we respect that in everybody, I don't see how we can have any problems.
Right. No, I like that statement that you just made. You're not a body, you have a body. I think that's perfect. It kind of puts things in perspective that kind of goes back to that whole continuum of life, right? We think of life as a human body that dies and we're dead, and I think, like you said, you have a body and it's just a vessel that we're using temporarily. Yeah. I think it does change things quite a bit.
The real you, the soul, never dies. It just finds another body
exactly
to go on to the next life. That's all it is.
Yep.
And that's all part of the continuing education.
Yep.
Well, we've got it. Our job is to try to help other people try to understand it anyway. I think it seems so simple when you get it, but all the questions we hear from people. We also have a very active prison program. I think we get 5 or 6 letters a day from prisoners in various prisons. And what we do, we send damaged books free to the prisoners. And they really has made a difference in their lives, because they said some of them have started question and answer groups where they discuss the books and talk about them. And they had one man who was in there, he wrote us, he was in there for life for murder. He was only in his 20s. And he became the librarian, and he was taking the books and, checking them out to the different prisoners, and they started a discussion group. And even though he's never going to get out, it made a big difference, because it gave him something to focus on and something to live for. So we're seeing a difference. Even though the questions they ask are incredibly difficult to answer, we feel we're making a difference in that way.
So that's such an interesting approach. So how did you get involved with the prisons? I mean, I find that very interesting. It's a good thing. I'm just curious as to how you got into that.
the prisoners themselves.
Yeah, didn't they just write?
They started writing, and wanted to know if we had any free books. And we heard about a publishing company, and then once we started sending one-to-one, the word spread around.
Yeah, they've got a community because it went around to all the prisons.
Oh, wow.
It's not long before we'll hear from another prison and another prison, and so we're corresponding with them from all over the United States.
Wow.
Very rarely we'll get a letter from a chaplain asking if we can get books to the prison library. But it's usually they contact the publishers and say, do you have any damaged, torn up books or anything you can give us? And then they all just spread among themselves.
Right. And then they'll later write and give feedback or whatever. But
they're really grateful for us to send them things. And so to us, I think we're doing a service there.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that you all are doing a great job. I mean, this is wonderful. That's so good to know.
You never know. Even somebody who's never going to get out of prison, you don't know. Maybe you have helped them in their life some way.
Yeah.
Well, if nothing else, you help them understand maybe why they are where they are, and so.
Right, and I think you're making difference in people's lives, and changing those lives it's a huge thing. I mean, like I said, when I wrote this book, I truly believed, and I think I say it in my book right up front. I truly believed it was my destiny to write this book, and I'll find out eventually what that destiny meant, but I truly believe that, and that's why it took me about over 5 years to write this book, and I wanted to get it done. And my goal really was to, and I was telling people, if I change one life with this book, that's my return on investment of 5 years, just one life.
Absolutely.
Now, everything else is gravy.
You never know how you're affecting somebody else. Our books are all over the world. They're translated in over 20 languages.
Right.
And it's as though they have a life of their own.
Well, you've already accomplished yours then by your niece.
Right, exactly. And that's what encouraged me so much, because I said, it's already paid off, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Even if I don't make a dime on this, exactly. Everything else is a gravy after this. So
that's our motivation, is to try to spread information, positive information, to people, as many people as we can. So we're doing a part anyway. Okay, but Mandeep, before we're coming up to time to stop. An hour has gone by so quickly. Before we go off, I want you to let people know how they can contact you if you want them to contact you.
Sure. I think the easiest way is via email. I can give both of my email addresses. One is ybook@rocketmail.com. So WHYBOOK@rocketmail.com, or mkhera, MKHERA@gmail.com. And they can also check out my website. It's www.why-thebook.com. So THEBOOK, y-thebook.com.
Right. I believe we also have links over to your site from our site.
Yes. And so they can see my other interviews on the awards and press releases and all that stuff, and my profile as well. So.
Right.
And Mandeep's book has only been out a few months. It's called Why. And if it's not in the bookstores, you can ask the bookstores to order it, and they can get it from us. Or you can get it from our website, or Amazon. All of these places have the book. But our website is Ozark Mountain, abbreviation, OZARKMT.com, or OZARKMT.com, to find out more about Mandeep's book and how you can get it. And it's very easy to read, and it has a lot of good information in it. Okay, so we're going to have to leave. The last thing I want to say before we go is I'm going to be doing 2 of my classes in April. If anybody's interested in taking the classes, they can also check on the website. I'm having a class in San Diego and a class in Arkansas, in Fayetteville, Arkansas, in April. And there's still openings for people who want to take the class. Check the website, ozarkmountain.com, and check on the schedules.
Yeah, and come to the conference and get to see Mandeep in person.
Okay, well, thanks, Mandeep, for coming on tonight.
Thank you both, and it was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right, well, it's time to go now. So good night, everyone, and thanks for listening.
If you enjoyed the show, check out more of our other videos and be sure to subscribe and click the like button. Thank you for listening to the Metaphysical Hour with Dolores Cannon.